maybe it'll happen again, but it has not yet. And that night I was given my first dream about the blueprints, and in the dream, Mike Bickle was teaching the Song of Solomon to me. So he was tutoring me, it was just me and him. So he was going word by word, you know, like making sure I write down every single word he says. So he is watching me and he says a phrase and I don't write it down. And he goes, why are you writing it down? I said, I'm not gonna write devotion, dies, and longing. He said, I didn't say dies, I said pies. And I write it down, and as I write it down, I write P-Y-E-S. I've never seen that word before, but I wrote it confidently. And then at the end of the dream, I write this woman's name down, Simone Weil, and then it's the end of the dream. Well, there's one more part. Ann House, who is his assistant, she gives him a kiss on the cheek at the end of the dream. And to me, Ann House represents Anna in the house. She has an easy name of symbolism. So she represents the movement. So, end of dream. So obviously I wake up from the dream and I'm thinking about that word that I had never seen before, pies, that I wrote P-Y-E-S. So this is pre-Google, no Google, 2002. I know that's so weird. I had an AOL account. Okay, so I have a dictionary under my bed. So I pull out my dictionary and it's in my dictionary. It's not in every dictionary, but it is in my dictionary. And PYES, it says a set of rules used in the pre-Reformation church to determine the correct order of worship. Wow. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like this, he's giving us already the blueprints, which is Song of Solomon. You go after intimacy. If you're going to do a house of prayer, you go after intimacy. You don't go after causes as your main thing. You go after intimacy. Song of Songs. And so that was amazing, but then it gets even better. But not maybe better, but it gets even more. Because I wait to tell all 5 dreams to Lou Engle till the end. But because, by the way, I don't know that I'm going to lead the house of prayer. I think it's his. So I'm just giving it to him for him to run with. Because he's only supposed to do the call for 3 years. And then in 2004, he's supposed to do the house of prayer. So I'm like, okay, so this will, I'm just going to give it to him all at once so he can catch it all. So when I go to give it to him, I see the name of the woman that I wrote at the end, Simone Weil. It's in his bookshelf. Like as I'm talking, I see, like he has this massive bookshelf. It's like full of books, but it catches my eye. I don't know how that all works, but it did. So I grab it and I go, this name was what I wrote. And he goes, I just bought that book. He literally bought it that day. And he goes, I thought, I'll never read this book. So I put it in my shelf. This literally happened. And so then I was like, it was in it. And then I pull it out and it's called The Need for Roots. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is the whole thing. Song of Solomon is the root system of the house of prayer. And I was like, that is what it was. That we need a hidden life in God. And that we must pursue him in the secret place for it to grow. So that was the first dream, and about waiting on God. And it's interesting, I've been in this now for 15 years, and I've seen houses of prayer come and houses of prayer go. And the main thing that would say what creates the ability to do it for a long period of time, what causes there to be the ability to continue, and it's intimacy. Intimacy. I mean, really, even in the Christian life, what keeps us is the abiding life, right? What keeps us in the vine. So, amen. Okay, I'm gonna look at my notes now. When I say this, for those of you who know Song of Solomon, Song of Solomon is not like a book you just go through and then you're like, got it. It's like a book that you can continually return to, and it's not a book that's like, here's the progressive steps of intimacy. It's kind of like a spiral staircase is what I would say. You keep returning to things over and over again, and it's not because you're not growing, it's part of this circular motion of God. So it's something that God loves poetry, and part of the reason he does and why those books are so big in his book is because it continues to speak. You know, he continues to speak through it. And he isn't looking for just the main and plain. He's wanting to draw us deeper in. He wants to bring us closer in. So, what did I want to say? Oh, I know what I want to say, but I maybe will wait. But I feel like some of you in this season are to go to Song of Solomon. I feel like you were even drawn tonight for that reason, because God is beckoning you to Song of Solomon. And there's a reason it's called the Song of All Songs, and it's because it is. It's the song of all songs. And there is something that God wants to touch you in your heart with this message. And I just feel like, it's interesting, Mike Bickle, in 1988, it was 1988, he was called into this, and it was totally random. He was like reading a beautiful wedding card. It was like a wedding invitation, and he's seen a ton of those, but all of a sudden he looked at the verse and it touched him. So he just kept praying it, and he's like, set me as a seal. And it started touching him so deeply that he decided to tell his assistant, don't let anybody interrupt me. And he said, I have rarely ever done that, but I told her, please, I'm being touched by the Lord, don't have anyone interrupt me. And so he's being touched, and he's weeping every time he says, set me as a seal upon your heart. And all of a sudden the phone rings, and he goes, how quickly you can move into the flesh. You're being so tenderized, but then you're like, did I just say not to bother me? But anyway, she says, it's Bob Jones, and he just said he heard the audible voice of God to call you right now. And she said, I thought you would want God to come in, it's like, and so he says, he goes, I'm on the way to the airport, and this is, again, pre-cell phones. So he has to call before he gets in his car to go to the airport. And so he's like, I know this seems so weird, but so he's like, I have to get in the car immediately, but God told me I had to call you right now. Song of Solomon 8:6. It's going to be your primary message, and it's going to touch an entire generation. And he's like, that's what I'm meditating on right now. And he's like, okay, I don't even know what it says. I didn't have time to look it up. But whatever it says, this will touch an entire generation, and it will be your primary message. And he was really excited. Like Mike said, I was so excited because God had just narrowed my life. He just pretty much told me, this is what you're called to. He had also called him to 24-hour prayer, like 4 years earlier, but he's like, yes, this is what I'm primarily called to. Then he read Song of Solomon, and he's like, oh no. He was so disturbed. And he remembers going home, and his wife was so excited because he had called her to tell her everything that had just happened. But now he's read the book, and he's like, I'm not excited. And so she's like, oh my gosh, this was an amazing day. And he's like, kind of. And like, so then he was so disturbed by the actual, and didn't get it. He's like, I don't get why you want me to have this message. Give it to the women's ministry. Like, they love this stuff. Don't give it to me. Like, I want Romans. I want Revelation. Little did he know that he would later find out that in order to call people to prayer, they have to have this. A condemned heart being called to prayer will make them do it out of duty. People will be drawn to religion and being religious. That will be what will, and trying to get a better life. He said, but if they have hearts that know that God is so deeply in love with them, it will change how people perceive prayer and why they pray. So years will go by and I'm going to do Mike one more time, then I'll go back to me or to PIHOP. But Mike has an experience, and this is so profound to me. In it, he's in a large meeting. It's so many people, 5,000, 10,000 people. And he hears the audible voice of God say to him, call them Hephzibah. So the audible voice of God is, or whatever, however you say that, because it's happening in a dream, but it's thundering in the room and telling him, call them Hephzibah. Tell them that I delight in them. So he does it, and he wakes up out of the dream, and he's really excited, because he's like, I'm going to do that today at church, I'm going to call them Hephzibah. He's like, I want to find it in the Bible first. So then he goes to find it in the Bible, and he knows it's somewhere. He thinks it's Isaiah, so he looks in Isaiah, and he skips his favorite chapter because he loves Isaiah 62 so much, because it's about 24-hour prayer. And so he's like, I know that scripture, and it's not there. So he keeps skipping over it, and he goes through Isaiah, and then he starts going into the other prophets, and he can't find it. So he's like, okay, I'm going to just write down. I'm going to look at a concordance. So he does, and there it says Isaiah 62, verse 5. He's like, no, that is wrong. I know that it's not there. That's my favorite scripture. Well, there it was. And let's look at Isaiah 62. So verse 4, speaking over Israel. This is God who's not going to withhold his peace until he establishes her righteousness like a bright light. He's like, I'm just going to keep crying out. So he's taken ownership of the righteousness of Israel and said, you know what, I'm going to make this thing happen. And then he says, you shall no longer be termed forsaken, nor shall your land anymore be termed desolate, but you shall be called Hephzibah, and your land Beulah. For the Lord delights in you, and your land shall be married. For as a young man marries a virgin, so shall your sons marry you. And as the bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so shall your God rejoice over you. I have set watchmen on your walls, verse 6. O Jerusalem, they shall never hold their peace day or night. So day and night prayer is mentioned in the Bible a few times, maybe about 3 or 4 times. This is one of the main passages where it is. And right in the midst of it is the revelation, God rejoicing over us as a bridegroom. Now the thing about a bridegroom is bridegrooms are expectant. And there is an enthusiasm about being with their bride. And God doesn't just call himself a husband, he calls himself a bridegroom. And there is something about that because God's love never changes. He cannot improve it and he cannot deplete it. He loves 100% all the time. Humanity's love will fade. It will increase and it will decrease. But God's love remains the same forever. So when he calls his love bridegroom love, it does not change. It is eternal. What? Yes. That's why the love here is just a little tiny, teeny, tiny, little taste. We want to make it massive, but it's just a tiny, teeny, little tiny taste. Because you will watch the bridegroom love of this on this side, it will fade quickly. But that bridegroom love never fades. It will always remain the same for you. He is enthusiastically pursuing you. forever. And that will get people to consistently want to do things for him in outrageous ways. That will cause us to want to lose our life. That right there. Not because we're trying to prove something, but because we have experienced this incredible love that is totally other than. And that is what he wants to convince his church of. That's why it will be like the civil rights movement for the African American. So will what happens in this hour to the church when we get this message. And by the way, you're messengers of this message. When this message touches you, you become a messenger of it. And you will bring many people that you've been called to in all different fields, because so many of you represent all different types of fields, and you will represent God this way. And guess what? You're going to bring mountains down, and you're going to raise valleys up, and you're going to cause crooked paths to be made straight. That people will know that God's love is totally other than, and he is delighted with humanity. Wow. Okay. I love this. And I love that he's committed to it. Because guess what? He wants his love to be our first love. He wants the way he loves us to be our first love. Not the way somebody else loved us or the way we love something. He wants the way he loves to be our first love. Do you catch that? So the way God, the capacity, the quality, the quantity of his love to be our first love. That is what is the main taste of love that we have had. Amen. And that's available to all of us. No matter how beautiful or how not so beautiful, how big or how little, how small or how tall, whatever. It does not matter your condition in this physical life. It is available. Yay. Okay. I'm trying to not have to enter in my code. Okay, amen. Okay, just for a fun part, I'm just going to add this little part. But Hephzibah, and then the other word was Beulah. So we have another location on Lake Avenue, and I mean, there's a fun story of how we landed over there. It's a long story, so I'm not going to go into it, but it's a fun story. But I brought it with me. I'm going to show it to you. So we were in a small little building, and then we got into a bigger building. And when we got into the bigger building, lots of people knew about us that didn't know about us before. And our landlord, who owned all of the buildings on Lake Avenue, he owns like 5 of them. So the first 2 is the ones that we rent. And he's like, you know what? I got this postcard off of eBay. He's not a Christian, but he's just like, I want you to see it. Like, this is, because they owned all, like it was like a little appliance, furniture, and rug store. So they had all 3. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of cool. It's just a postcard thanking the person for using their services. So he gives it to me. And when I look at it, it's addressed to Beulah. And I was like, Beulah? And it's Beulah Dudley. And she lived on 853 East Mountain in Pasadena. And I go, you know that Beulah's in the Bible? He's like, really? And I go, and guess what it's about? It's the land where day and night prayer happens. He goes, no. And I go, yes. And I said, and that's the name on this postcard. And so that was fun. I was like, you know, there's not that many places where day and night prayer is mentioned, and then the land is talked about, and Yeah, here we go. So here. Okay, amen. Okay. So, how many of you are familiar with the Vineyard movement? Okay. So, in my second dream, I'm not going to go through it all, I'll do it another time, but part of the dream was there was a CD, and it was called The Secret of the Vine, and it was the combining of two movements, IHOP and Vineyard. So back in the day, in 1984, and this will be like the last, I just have one more thing after this. But back in the day in 1984, Bob Jones told Mike Bickle, hey, God is going to join this movement in Kansas City with a movement 35 miles south of Los Angeles. And he's like, where is that? He goes, I don't know. And he goes, what is the movement? He goes, I don't know. He said, I just heard clear that he's going to join these two movements together. And he said the reason why he's going to join it is because there's two banners that he wants to bring together. The banner over your movement is prophetic intercession. The banner over this movement in Los Angeles is worship and compassion. He wants to bring together prophetic intercession with worship and compassion. So he's like, okay. So a few months go by, and Mike goes to the first Signs and Wonders conference in Anaheim, California, that was being hosted by Anaheim Vineyard. And so John Wimber does the opening session, and when he does the opening session, he says, well, this movement would be, I think, most known for worship and compassion. So he says it. He just says it. So then Mike's like, what? Like, this is it. And so then he goes to what is the person? The person who's like, like, what is the person called? Yeah, usher. I was going to call them an elder. An usher. And he says, how far is this from Los Angeles? He goes, about 35 miles. And so he's like, oh my God. So then he's like, this is going to be connected. And then as history would go on, and like, it would probably not be, I think it was 4 more years, John would call Mike and then eventually invite him to come speak at a pastor's gathering, and then they would travel for 3 years together, and the movements would join together. And in my dream, which was in 2002, it was together again. It was a jagged CD, but it still played, and I felt like it's cutting edge because these 4 things need to be together: worship and compassion, prophetic and intercession. Like,